And we're back. Okay, so, to... And this is a random little thing in my head I call, when do you feel like class? So, this is a question that I've been pondering lately, and before I go any further, I should probably explain what in the wide world of sports I'm talking about with this vague question. So, I'm not talking about anything top-down per se, as if I want to run a jovial rat catcher with a Scottish accent who shows his devout worship of his deities, the Proclaimers, by bellowing bad renditions of classic rock songs. There is nothing mechanical to what I just said, and you could run practically any D&D class and feel like this character, though some are probably better fits for that than others, but that's besides the point. What I really mean with this question is there is a base fantasy archetype that each class is trying to emulate in the mechanical part of the game that is apparent in the title, like Barbarian, or Wizard, or Factotum, etc. And class-based role-playing games try to emulate mechanically the flavor of these names through how to do things in the rules, but D&D 3.5 and 5th edition as well have a somewhat unique problem that other leveling systems don't when trying to make a fighter feel like a fighter, and that's the multiclassing system. In a non-multiclassing system, the designer can front-load the crap out of a class with several features upon character creation that make you feel like you're a competent member of that archetype. But if you do this in a multiclassing system, that single level dips into classes become disproportionately powerful to just continuing whatever class you started in. Their solution, as much as they thought about it anyways, is to just spread the base features across several levels, which in a way is why I think both 3.5 and 5th ed feel better when you start at later levels in ways that our systems just plain don't. But how well this works out is exactly what the titular question is, so let's start some base classes here. So, Barbarian here, for example. This is probably one of the harder classes to grasp the definition of, actually. But as far as D&D is concerned, it's mostly a berserker with a bit of the, like, wild man slash old world European tribal people stereotypes like Celts, Germans, etc. As far as when this actually feels like a barbarian, there's a good argument to be said at, like, level 1, but also, like, once per day when it comes to 3.5. As you get one rage per day, and it will last the combat, but it won't last past that. And any features beyond that when it comes to 3.5 don't really feel too much like anything else. Like, they get 4+
more rages
skills
per day, and
yeah,
for some reason you're good at detecting traps.
Yes, for some... No, that's a +2 AC and saves versus traps. It's not detecting it.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
more of your
better
heart to
at-
get hurt by traps.
Yeah.
Avoiding traps when you trigger them.
Yeah. There's also the damage reduction, I guess. That's the only other thing I could really go over there. I pulled Rage from Pathfinder First Ed, which we'll go over later, because this is kind of a relevant update as far as just trying to feel like a barbarian. For starters, they don't do one rage per day. They do a number of rounds you can rage each day. So even at first level, while you can't, like, you might not want to start every combat raging, you could at least get a rage off in every combat, so you actually do feel like you don't feel like a barbarian for one combat a day, you feel like a barbarian, period, to some extent. Yeah. And rage powers also do great for, like, flavoring yourself outward more. So basically every even level they get a rage power, which is something they can do while raging. Like Animal Fury, which lets you bite, or Clear Mind, or stuff like that, basically.
You're constantly getting things that work while you're raging, whereas opposed to 3.5, you have rage and you'll get more uses of it, and that's it.
Yeah. And as far as 5th ed is concerned, rage 2024 5th ed specifically, rage starts at twice per day, and you gain an extra one, or you gain one back on a short rest, which takes an hour, but you can usually get, if you're doing a dungeon crawl, you can usually get, like, one of them off every other combat, or that's what they assume anyways, something like that.
Yeah.
You still start with more.
Yeah, you still start with more. But that said, like, all of them do rage pretty well, so from, like, level 1 you feel like rage. When it comes to something other than rage, I think that's pretty much where it's at least, I would say level 2 Pathfinder actually does a pretty good job of starting to incorporate at least more things into rage.
Yeah.
Similarly, like, more things get incorporated into Rage in 5th edition. As far as like anything else goes, I feel it's a little bit more subpar on this one. Because it's like, if you're going for, they are very combat oriented. They're pretty much more on the Berserker side than anything. Subclasses, I think, or Barbarian subclasses and Pathfinder archetypes, I think, are where you start to more cover the more Wildman / Tribalist things, where you start to run into like the non-combat stuff. But yeah, like overall, Barbarian is pretty well flavored or pretty quickly. The only actual complaint I think is addressed in pretty much every future system of just like, you can do this once per day, so past that you're basically a fighter.
Yeah, like even 5th ed,
plus feats.
yeah, just 2024, like, or 2024 as you have there, makes you like, yeah, you get Rage right at level 1, you get more uses, you get damage reduction right off the bat from Rage.
Yeah.
In 2024, at second level you don't get Uncanny Dodge. Well, actually, you get Danger Sense, but you also get Reckless, which just feels very Barbarian.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can just get advantage on my attacks, but it gives my opponent advantage against me. They do a better job of, I think, still giving you stuff that adds on to Rage, and then you all obviously also get your subclass things, which can be all sorts of stuff depending on what you go into.
As an aside, I also like Primal Knowledge, especially for how stupid it is. So basically, while you're raging, you can use Strength for various skills, including like Survival.
Yep.
We're looking for food. I'm going to get angry.
Acrobatics, Intimidation, Perception, Stealth, or Survival. I'm so angry I see things better with my muscles.
I'm so angry I can do cartwheels.
I'm harder to see.
No, it's more like, oh, for the love of gods, it's over there. It's right there, the berry bush.
I like the one for stealth. Just the idea of, I'm so angry, people have a harder time seeing me.
Like, just going up the list. Level 7, you get an advantage on initiative rolls. You get, like, a move when you start your rage as a bonus action later on.
Yeah.
You can forgo advantage on attacks to give the extra damage. You get stuff outside of the subclass features that feel like they're adding on to your a melee brute.
Yeah.
Then 3/5s. Literally, you get rage. You get greater rage and mighty rage later on, which just increase the strength and con bonuses you get.
Yeah.
But that's
they're going for a few things there. Illiteracy is a cute touch. It takes 2 skill points to get rid of it, but it's there, I guess. They're definitely going for the, like, you're an agile character with, like, the fast movement, trap sense, and uncanny dodge stuff. But, yeah, it's still not very well, like, it's very generic, is the only issue with it, really.
I also do like unarmored defense that 3/5 or that 2024 has.
Yes.
Where it's just like, you add your con to AC if you don't wear armor.
Yeah. Which allows you to not wear armor. It's usually not used because the armor is generally better unless you're...
The armor is generally better, but it's very flavorful for what they're going for.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Now Barbarian. Or not Barbarian. Bard. So, this pretty much works from level 1 with a ton of flavor and flexibility in 3/5, and ironically is probably the only one that is worse... the only one in 5th edition that is kind of worse at conveying its theme at the very least at early levels than 3/5 in this very narrow aspect of looking at things. Because, like, bards at level 1 in 3/5, they perform to give bonuses and do various things.
Yeah.
It's like, Bardic Inspiration is nice and all, and mechanically I actually do love how Bard plays and the fact that it's a 9-level class and everything like that. But I do very much miss the Bardic music.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know why it's not there. I absolutely know why it's not there, because it does not work in bound accuracy. You can't just throw out willy-nilly.
You can't just be like, hey, everyone in the party has +2 to hit all the time.
Yeah.
And Bardic Inspiration is a nice way to get around that. Basically, I give you a die, and you can use this die to increase your attack bonus.
Yeah.
A D20 test.
A D20 test, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
remember, you have this die. I'm putting this die in front of you. Remember you have this die. It's
and the die type it goes up, and you use it
Yeah.
after you roll, so you can be like, oh well, I rolled an attack and I missed by 2. Well, I'll roll my d6 die, and if I get a 2+, my attack now hits.
Yep.
Or some of the I think some of the subclasses can also do like spend the die for damage and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Other ways
subclasses
to
do
spend
other
the
things with
dice.
die. Yeah. But yeah. On the other hand, it's like, how much does this actually feel like Bard? It's like, mechanically, it's a fun class, and it feels well. It's just, I do question how much it actually feels like Bard from that part. It feels like D&D Bard. Does it feel like the concept of Bard is more what I'm getting at? That's where I'm more on the A side. It's.
I mean, I still see it as you're doing you're inspiring your party members, and
Yeah.
if you want to do the role play Bard stuff like that, it still works fine.
It does. Saying for the entirety of combat just because.
Yeah, no one's stopping you from being a womanizer just because you're in 2024. You get expertise. You're gonna have better bonuses. This couple skills you want.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and you have a decently large skill list. You're a skill monkey as much as anything else.
Yeah.
As much as 2024 allows for anyone to be a skill monkey, like they're only behind the rogue, I think. By that I mean
they get three. They get three
They get
skill
three.
proficiencies as opposed to 2 that a lot of other classes get. I think rogue gets 4.
Yeah, rogue gets 4.
Yeah, so
Rogue.
they have more skill, and it's a bounded thing, so you don't really need a bazillion skill points like you need in 3.5 to actually have your skills level up.
Yeah.
It's what skill are you going to get an extra 2, 2, 6 depending on your level one.
Yeah. Okay. On to Cleric. Okay, yeah, them pretty much from level 1. I mean, honestly, they're more of a roleplay thing anyways when it comes to their god.
Yeah, they never had class abilities anyways.
Yeah, no.
you had spell slots.
You have your domains, which, at least when it comes to making your character, at least feels pretty thematic. How well that plays out is not quite there.
Well,
but,
you have your domains that give you domain spells. Pathfinder give you domains that actually had abilities attached to them.
that is true too.
So choosing your domains was more important. And then 2024 or Cleric is great.
Yeah, yeah. There's abilities attached to domains in 3.5 as well. It's just they're very minor.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like there's standardized, like at this level you get this at fixed levels, and in Pathfinder you got like all clerics get a thing in their domain, etc., etc.
And furthermore, the cleric subclasses in 2024 outright add more things to do with Channel Divinity, which is the replacement for Turn Undead, which I think we've talked about before.
Which also still does Turn Undead.
Yeah, which also still does Turn Undead, and usually an extra little thing here or there.
And right off the bat, they realized, hey, maybe you don't just want to turn undead for it. So even before you get your subclass, you can also just use it to heal or do damage.
Yeah.
Because Divine Spark is the thing you can spend your Channel Divinity on to just do a D8 plus your Wisdom and damage, or a D8 plus Wisdom and healing to someone.
Yeah.
And those dice will go up as you level up. 2024, 3.5, or not 3.5, 5th Ed, Cleric was great.
Yeah. But in general, like, as far as what you expect from like playing a cleric, generally it's healing magic and
it's all roleplay.
They all, mostly it's roleplay. Like the only thing that like feels like a cleric is I'm hitting someone with a mace and I'm casting healing magic and
like
various
throwing
things.
some blinding light at someone and healing people. Yeah.
Yeah. However, that flavor can be really distorted depending on what god you're actually making a cleric of. So like all of that holds true of like Pelor, a good god that hates on undead and stuff like that. But if you go to like a god of trickery, that's a very different cleric.
And if an orc god of cleric of Grummesh, then I'm throwing darkness at people and hitting them with an axe.
Yep. And that still kind of works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. So yeah, it helps that the cleric list is versatile enough. It runs into some limitations when you start trying to get to like, if I'm doing a god of magic, that's where it gets really weird, where it's almost like maybe I should make a wizard instead, strangely enough, and just take cleric as my profession.
Yeah.
But yeah, outside of that though, or a god that hates magic, which gets really awkward.
What, you're asking for spells now? Did you not read the brochure?
So Druid is also a weird one to me. Like Wild Shape feels more like their thing, but also like nature spells and stuff. So I, as far as like a D&D one, like I think Druid, ironically for D&D, mostly gets its definition from 3.5 for what anyone expects of it. Because beforehand, it's not this.
Yeah.
Uh,
It was very much defined by the wild shaping nature mage that 3.5 made it, and it that's what it's been since.
yeah. And honestly, if you think of the archetype, typical Druid, 3.5 does play a pretty strong role into that thought in fantasy. From that point onward, somewhat. There's still all the usual baggage that was attached to Druid beforehand, but I do see bleed overs from the concepts that were actually in 3.5. Because honestly, this is probably one of the putting aside the absolute nonsensical, unbalanced pile of bullshit this class actually is, it is actually one of the better designed if you actually did something like balance it. And not make Wild Shape a broken pile of nonsense.
What, you think there's a problem and I can ignore every physical stat my character has, also being a fullcaster?
Yes, that thing you just said would probably be the problem. That would be my guess.
I don't see a problem. I mean, Pathfinder figured out that was an issue and said, no, you don't get to ignore your physical stats.
I mean, the fix is really simple. It's like, instead of ignoring your physical stats, we just add on top of it.
Yeah, we just give you some bonuses on top of it. No,
Yeah.
you not wholesale replace half your stats with that of a physical beast that has no mental stats while you keep your own mental stats.
They fix that problem. It doesn't fix the shape change rules being the shape change rules, but that's a completely different matter entirely.
It's still mostly fine in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
And they do it well enough in 5th Ed. So
Yeah, they do fine in
we
5th Ed.
effectively get a hit point pool equal to the monster or the creature you turn it into, and that goes away your wild shape ends. And they give you
It's
options in
temporary hit points.
subclasses to do things with your wild shape that aren't wild shaping if you don't want to do wild shaping.
Yeah. Which I think is actually the biggest issue with the 3.5 is it does very much railroad you into you're doing this.
Yeah.
And Pathfinder doesn't really change that much, although some archetypes do, or some ACFs do. But...
Some of the ACFs do things with wild shape or remove wild shape, or at very least reduce your effectiveness of wild shape to give you effectiveness in other places. So you have some play there.
Yeah. And their spell list, especially as 3.5 goes on, has some of the funner spells to it as well. They're not as good anywhere near as the other two spell lists, but there is just some various interesting little nuggets here and there, and or high level nonsense spells where you do things like, I don't know, summon an avalanche on top of people.
Summon an avalanche, just call like a mile-wide storm, all sorts of fun stuff.
Yeah. It's like, are you ever going to cast these spells? No. Are they fun to read?
No.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah. Like, are you going to cast these spells? No. Is the BBEG going to cast this spell? Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, if that said, how fast do you actually feel like a druid? I don't know. Hunter, you're running one. How quickly did you actually feel like a druid in your in our current campaign? Just from a mechanical standpoint.
Hunter?
What was that?
How quickly did you feel like a druid when we were playing our campaign?
The current campaign.
It's tough to say because I'm very familiar with 3.5 Druid, and there's certain aspects of it that I kind of feel are intrinsic to the concept. And there's some things that are and aren't in 5. Animal Companion is completely different. Not to its detriment, but as going into it, I felt it was a unexpected change that I was not happy with initially, but in the long run, I'm happy with.
Yeah.
I don't have to really manage another character in combat because the only thing I do have my owl do is move and distract. So
Yeah,
it makes it a much simpler, smoother process.
You have a familiar as opposed to a full-on animal companion that's better than the fighter of the party.
Oh,
I'm-
even the dog's better than me.
I am finding myself using wild shape significantly less than I would have in 3.5.
Yeah,
But that's mostly because the
you have a
archetype I
replacement
went-
ability for it.
Yes, the thing I specifically went for was a caster-focused druid.
Yeah.
Because they have the subclasses. So once again, starting out, it felt weird not having an equal reliance on wild shape that I was as spellcasting.
I would like to
That
note
said,
that
I feel a lot more focused around being someone that cares about nature in 5th ed than I do in 3.5.
fair.
Yeah.
I would also like to note that in the 5th ed campaign we're talking about, there are 2 druids, neither with wild shape.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I will also. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I will also add that in the previous sort of test campaign that we did to get our legs in 5th edition,
Yes.
I played a druid. I was being constantly reminded the forest was in danger, and I just played a generic. I played a generic druid. I didn't play the class that super focused on wild shape. Mostly at the request of our
I
DM.
can say there was a
Okay.
reason for that, and that's also the reason I didn't go for it.
No, you'd be fine doing that now. So
Yeah,
our previous
we
campaign
were
took place
2014.
under the 2014 rules, and in the 2014 rules, the druid subclass focused around wild shaping is broken as shit at early levels. They fixed this.
Circle of the Moon.
Yeah, Circle of the Moon. They fixed this in 2024. 2024, it's perfectly fine to do that.
Yeah.
You know, it was more of the stigma of remembering the response to it. Was like, okay, it's there. I'm going to look at other stuff first.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I ended up falling in love with what I picked.
the issue was like with Circle of the Moon, with Moon for 2024 or 2014, you could turn into a bear at like level 2
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and get like 40 some odd hit points from that.
Yep.
Which means you basically at level 2 have twice the hit point health of like the barbarian in the party if you have a barbarian, while being fairly or relatively defensive and strong because you also get to ignore your physical stats.
Yeah. That part they didn't change.
And you can do this like multiple times a day. So as soon as someone blows through your 40 points, you just wild shape again.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, so I took another path down, and like from the very beginning, I felt like I was in tune with nature. I was doing naturey things to solve problems. The forest was coming to me with various issues that needed to be fixed.
But it's more the question. It's very easy to roleplay a
Brought
druid.
bears with you.
Yeah. It is very
Yeah,
easy
but I
to-
felt the mechanics were backing up my role playing.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like I felt with the spells I was casting and the things I was doing with the class, that it was supporting my play style of woodsy druid.
Yeah. That makes enough sense. I see enough. Almost the spellcasting alone actually tends to feel like it points towards, hey, I'm a druid.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they throw enough
Yeah.
bits and bobs on top of it.
When you're doing stuff like making spike growths and entangling vines, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
It
when
very
your
much
basic cantrip is whipping people and pulling them towards you with vines,
Yeah. It very much helps that they have their own spell list that is very flavored around druid. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, now on to what is pretty much the opposite end of the spectrum. So when does a fighter feel like a fighter? As I think my answer was probably never.
So if your intention for fighter is guy who hit stuff, level 1, I guess.
Yeah. But that's everyone.
But that is literally everyone being the problem.
Yeah. It's like,
Yeah,
The
it's
problem with fighter is fighter as just class does not feel like fighter. It
Well,
feels like it is the base level Lego flat surface on which you build your feats and somewhat skills, I guess, but mostly feats upon. And that's why fighter can feel like 100 different things depending on what you use to build them.
I mean,
Well,
ish, because they'll
okay,
just be like, man, which hits things.
I'm gonna say, okay, 3 things with just the PHP. But with all the supplemental books, you can have some drastically different fighters by level 10. The problem is, that's not the class doing that. And you can mostly do that with other classes and get other cool stuff with it.
Yeah, you could be like, well, I want to be a dual-wielding fighter, but I could just be a ranger and have a couple less feats and have some
Exactly.
interesting stuff. You know,
Yeah.
or I can, Christ, you could be a rogue for all it matters and get sneak attack and some less feats and still pretty much do the same exact role. You could be a
Yeah.
cleric and just hit things and boost yourself and be a better fighter than a fighter is. So
Yeah. As far as
it's boring.
it is boring. As far as 3.5 is concerned, it's one of the two non-caster prestige classes that are basically pre-classes for getting into, or non-caster core classes that are basically pre-classes for getting into prestige classes. They are very good at shoring up the feats you might need to get into like a martial prestige.
Yeah,
Which,
you could go like you could dump 2 levels in fighter to get 2 bonus feats to be able to easier pivot into a like prestige class. But that's boring for shit for a base class.
yeah.
Yes.
When your claim to fame is can get out of it faster.
Yeah. And I didn't pull the Pathfinder one up here because it does have more going for it, and it's still boring as shit. Because basically
still
their extra
boring as
features, yeah. Because basically their extra features are more attack and more AC, is really what translates to. Which is
Whereas
great.
you have 5th edition fighter there, and 5th edition fighter actually feels good.
It feels good.
Yeah.
I can contend that it does feel good. It's the question of, does it actually feel okay? Does it feel like fighter is my bigger issue?
Okay.
Okay.
So I actually have some input on this.
Well, what are you defining as fighter?
That's also the other problem is, what am I defining as fighter as? I'm not sure myself on that one.
If it's guy who would hit things, then it does it fine.
Yeah.
I do also think that probably the premier fighter ability, which is the battle master,
Yeah.
with the martial dice, should have just been base.
I absolutely agree with you on that, and I think I would feel 100% like this is fighter from level 1 if that was base.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's actually the biggest problem I actually have with the 2024 fighter. As a class, it's perfectly fine. It's actually fairly good and does have some fun stuff to it. But as like...
It gets the 2nd extra attack, and it's the only one who does.
Yeah, and the 3rd extra attack.
And the 3rd extra attack at 20, but no one's playing at level 20.
Yeah, that's true. But nonetheless, it does get that.
It does.
But yeah, it's level 11 damage boost as a 2nd extra attack.
Like,
So
Battle Master is a great system, and it should have been base. But even if you're playing base, Battle Master feels good. The new... I like the new Arcane Archer that's currently in
playtest,
Arcane
yeah.
Unleashed in playtest. I also like the 2014 Rune Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a giant focused one. You can use all the 2014 subclasses in 2024, basically. I like that one too. There are like Eldritch Knight is perfectly fine. You can build interesting fighters in 5th Ed. And
You
go
can.
ahead, Krampus, because you're going to talk about you doing Baldur's Gate fighter.
Yeah, so we're doing a Baldur's Gate playthrough on Tuesdays. Not on stream, just a thing. And I'm playing a straight fighter. No dual classing, no nothing like that. I did take the Battle Master prestige, which I agree should have just been a base part of the class.
It was going to be.
Yeah.
That being said, pure fighter in D&D, at least as far back as I have played, which is 3.5, can't speak for any other editions before that, has always been kind of a crapshoot. And it's a crapshoot for the exact same reasons that it's always been. Like, the reason has never changed. It's not so much that other classes get more important stuff, or, like, more interesting stuff, because, like, I get the Battle Master stuff that I can disarm, I can dodge, and things like that. And I especially like the 2024 version because it doesn't take away your dice if you fail the attack.
Correct.
Yeah.
With some of them do, but the vast majority of them are used when you do something else.
Yeah, but if you use a superiority die and miss the attack, it doesn't expend the superiority. It only expends if it actually hits and triggers the effect. Now, if they save versus it, they're fucked. And that's kind of where I get to, is with the fighter, it is an all or nothing thing. You have no backup. Everything is tied to being able to beat the raw AC of a character. And at least as far as Baldur's Gate goes, if you can't beat the AC of a character, or if you need to be able to harm them with something other than a raw AC attack, you're done. There's not a lot you can do. Baldur's Gate lets you jimmy a few things, like I could throw a potion on a turn if I can't get through something, but I have no defense against spells. I have no defense against like mind-altering effects or hexes or whatnot. So if a character brings any sort of that to a battlefield, we're essentially down a ball.
I mean, if they use that stuff against my character, a Gloomstalker Rogue, it's the same thing.
If they use against any character, the same thing. None of our characters in our Baldur's Gate run have any particular defenses against most.
Well, I mean, you guys have higher wisdom at least to be able to get better natural, wisdom saves.
My character has higher wisdom. No one else does.
I'm pretty sure my character doesn't have shit for wisdom.
Yeah, but Baldur's Gate is also not exactly 5th edition.
That is
that's true.
We're dealing with a system that was very streamlined and modified, and I know a bunch of classes changed from one way to the other.
Yeah,
there is a mod I kind of wish we were using, but Bograt argued against it. I wanted the removes critical success and failures on skill checks.
Oh, but you need that to make the DC 99 check later.
That was why I was argued against.
Ah.
Yeah, so you need critical successes. So you can make that DC 99 check later.
Yeah, but when I've got a plus 12 to my, I think it's lockpicking, and I roll a 1 on a DC 10, I shouldn't fail.
And you just use another lockpicking kit, or you use an inspiration die.
We're very low on lockpicking kits.
We are, but that's because we lockpick every single thing we come across. Regardless, it's not actual 5th edition.
Yeah.
But, yep.
I'd say an actual 5th edition.
Actual 5th edition doesn't use a D4 for initiative rolls.
It's true.
Yeah. Although, oddly enough, it was used... I think one of the first editions did actually use a D4 for initiative. Strangely enough. So that's not kind of without a precedent. But yeah, I would say 2024 fighter probably starts to really feel like fighter around level 3, which...
Yeah, when you get your subclass.
When you get your subclass. Because I would almost say that weapon mastery actually would make you feel like a fighter, except they're not the only class with it. They get like one more weapon mastery than everyone else, but who the fuck cares? Like,
yeah, they get more. You also get fighting styles in 5th ed.
Yeah.
So you at least have some other like focus. You get focus in 5th ed, which you don't have in 3.5, as you can see there, where it's just here's a bunch of bonus feats. Like you pick a fighting style, which will give you bonuses using particular weapons, or maybe extra AC. You get second winds, you can heal yourself.
Yeah. Which in fairness,
you get action surge, so you can do another action.
Yeah.
And all the fighter stuff comes back on short rest. You basically keep having these things available to you.
Yeah. I mean, the fighting styles themselves are basically emulating the fighter feats for weapons from 3.5 to some extent. And it's also why you see it in a couple of other classes as well, in Paladin and Ranger.
Yeah. And in 2024, you also have weapon masteries where you get, you know, I'm using this type of weapon, so I can do like a little cleave effect, or I can get advantage on my next roll, or I can slow my target.
Yeah. Now, you don't get enough weapon masteries to really justify like bringing like a bucket of weapons on your back in order to change weapons every like attack or something. But
you at least get 3. So
you do get 3, which one of them is going to be for a ranged weapon most likely.
A crossbow or a bow, so you can do like pinning or slow, like slow effect is on a lot of the ranged weapons.
Yeah, and if you're dual wielding, the other 2 are going to be whatever you're wielding in your hands.
Yeah,
and that also kind of gets to another point. It's like Yeah, they can use a bunch of different weapons. Realistically, no character in a tabletop RPG is almost ever built around more than like one weapon type. You're basically going to pick your favorite weapon or two, and that's basically what you're going to use for the entire career. It's not really a class feature to be able to use all weapons per se.
No, but the thing about fifth ed is it's more viable
It is more
because
viable
of the bounded accuracy, where you don't have like,
yeah.
oh, well, I spent all my money increasing this weapon to +5 with all these effects on it. I'm not going to switch to something else. When the best you get is a +3.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The feats you actually get for fighter, or the feats you actually do get, the few of them that you do get, do special. There are really good ones that are specialized around weapon categories, like heavy weapons or polearms, but that still gives you a few options even within those categories. Like, you can use a halberd or you can use a glaive.
Yeah, and you can change your weapon masteries on a long rest. So if you do end up getting, like, say you've been using a great sword and like a bow and an axe for a different weapon mastery on it, and you end up getting a great halberd and want to start using that, you just long rest and you switch your weapon mastery to halberd, and you can immediately start using your halberd and get a full effect out of it.
Yeah. But again, that's not unique to fighter. A paladin, rogue, and ranger also get weapon masteries. And barbarian. But yeah, still.
Yeah.
Let's see. Monk. So for 3.5.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna preempt you right there. 5th edition.
Yeah.
Until 5th edition 2024.
I would say, as far as 3.5 monk is, you feel like a monk whenever you figure out how to pounce with a monk.
I want you to remember whenever you've been sad at the table and have missed a roll, that's your monk. That's your 3.5.
You feel like a monk when your DM accidentally gave you an item that gives you +6 to all your stats, so your class can work.
Yeah.
And you realize you're almost as effective as the druid's animal companion.
And then fighter's right over there. He's boring, but he's doing a better job. 2024 or 5th ed monk, or this specifically 2024 monk. Good shit.
Yeah, that's what I'm playing in the current campaign.
Yeah,
and
you just want a bonus action attack every round. Sure, you can have that.
Yeah,
from the very beginning, that class has felt good to play. If my incredibly bad luck with dice notwithstanding.
Yeah, as far as the monk archetype in tabletop RPGs and especially D&D is concerned, we're just going full like Wujiao martial artist bullshit. It's pretty much the stereotype there. I don't think that's even trying to hide that.
Up to the point where like the Krampus's monk has just flame, like can do elements in his fist that he throws out at range.
Yeah.
There's other ones that do bad spell casting.
Yeah. Well, actually, his was the bad spellcasting class. Now there's one in well, it's in the playtest. I'm pretty sure that's going to get a shit ton of negative
the playtest
feedback.
Is garbage.
It is absolutely garbage, but it's. I don't expect that to be published the way it is, so I'm not really. I don't count that. My biggest point of contention when it comes to the 2024 monk, and it's still fine in of itself, but I really do think the focus points are a little bit too backloaded almost, or it's just very weird. The scaling is weird.
It's one per level, but not at first level.
Yeah, it's one per level, but not at first level, but it means like at level 2, you have 2 focus points, which is, I have a nice idea of focus points, and then it just kind of goes up to like, we're currently at 5, and I think that, I don't want to speak for Krampus, but I think that actually feels about okay, at least, or just like, yeah. Go ahead.
So, I'm sorry.
No,
as far as the focus point system goes, when I first glanced at it without having played it, too felt a little bit small, but the encounters that we were getting into generally didn't last long enough for it to matter that much, and I had enough free tricks that don't require focus points, like Shiv said, the free unarmed attack every turn. That I could do it. Also, a lot of the things I use focus points on didn't kick in until I got my subclass. And by the point I had my subclass, I had a good stable of points to draw off. of.
Yeah, you also do gain focus points back on short rests, so...
Yeah, that's another thing, is even at a short rest, I get back all my focus points. And I have an ability where I can just go, oh, I've exhausted all my focus points. Once per long rest, I can
a
just
fight
go,
has started.
"Ugh,"
I get focus points.
and I regain focus points. So, yes, the pool is a little bit low to start with, but there's enough tools built in just at the first level where you can play with all of the toys that a monk gets fairly reliably.
Yeah, I just feel like that at the early levels, it's not that, it's, you get basically like a couple of extra attacks of combat is pretty much mostly what the focus points are going to do, or occasionally you'll use it for one of the other two abilities.
That's the thing, is there's a lot of things that are just given to you for free in the monk thing that don't need a focus point. That extra melee attack per turn, that's not a focus point. That's just there. If I want to do flurry of blows, that's second level and that's a focus point. But just one free normal attack, like I always do, because all of my attacks are going to be unarmed because I'm using the monk unarmed attack.
Monk.
Yeah.
And also one of the nice things is that your unarmed die ups periodically. So like right now, my hands do a 1d8 instead of a 1d6.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that's a thing in 3.5 too.
I think not having a bunch of points at low levels is fine, because ideally you shouldn't, at like level 2, you shouldn't be able to spend a focus point every single round in a combat.
No, probably not, but I get it from a balance perspective. It's one of those things where it just feels a little weird to me that it is such a very linear curve, but I get it at the same time.
From my perspective, it's been fine, but that's just my perspective.
Yeah.
With my first time out in 2024.
And the other part is, like, if you look at like the monk list on 3.5, it does kind of feel like they do get features. It's just that when you read into the features, they are so much less than meets the eye.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it gets 3.5 monk gets something at like every level. Just most of them don't matter.
Like the slow fall almost never matters. The bonus that bonus fee is Stunning Fist, so that's at least decent.
Yeah, but like
a couple
slow falls, we were like, okay, you can slow fall. Can the rest of your party slow fall? Can you help them in some way if you're in a situation where slow fall would be useful for you, and then you leave your party behind, otherwise because they would snap their ankles and decide to jump off the cliff you're sliding down?
Yeah. And how often are you actually forced down a cliff?
Or is this like,
yeah,
okay, you're level 14, have slow fall 40 feet, but you also have a wizard with you and he just pulls out a scroll of feather fall because it costs nothing?
Yeah.
And your class doesn't matter.
How about that ability where you don't take any penalties for being older? How many times does that really come up in a campaign?
That's a good question. In the comments, please respond if Timeless Body has ever come up in your campaign, because I don't know your character. The player party decided to take 40 years off of Adventurate or something.
Like, the ability to talk to anything via Tongue of the Sun and the Moon is an interesting idea, except it comes in at level 17.
17,
so who care?
Yeah.
And there's the stuff like Keystrike, Magic, and Lawful, and Adamantite. Why are these so spread out? Also, they don't matter, because, like, the non-monk is going to have just a fucking magic weapon, and
it's just a +1 weapon.
Yeah.
Like, we are giving you class features to make up for the deficiencies you're going to have because you're playing monk.
Yep.
And they weren't actually powerful enough to make up for the deficiencies, because, now I do magic, but I don't get the +1 attack and damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I still have a lower attack, and if I need to, then I'll have to get the item that gives me... like, in order to be effective, I'm still going to have to get a magic attack somehow, either through wielding a monk weapon or getting the monk bracers.
Yeah.
Whose name eludes me at the moment.
Uh,
Which means that having a class feat that gives you magic doesn't matter anyway.
No. And then you have stuff like Still Mind and Purity of Body and Wholeness of Body and Diamond Body. Does anyone remember what these do?
Diamond Body. That's the thing Emma Frost can do, right?
Bonuses to saves on at least one of them.
I legitimately have to look them up, and I know that in your average campaign, they're not going to come up all that often.
Amplify psychic powers. I remember this one. You can't fool me.
Let's see
Sorry.
here. So Still Mind at level 3 is a +2 bonus to spells and effects from the School of Enchantment. Purity of Body at 5 is immune to diseases except supernatural and magical diseases.
So not the ones that matter.
Wholeness of Body is you have a pool of hit points equal to twice your monk level, and you can use those to heal yourself.
And it's a supernatural ability, so it's a standard action.
Correct. So when you get this, you get 14 points of healing.
At level 7, where 14
At
points
level
is not
By
that
the
much.
way, a level 2 monk in 5th edition. You know how Krampus mentioned he had a thing that lets him get focus points back? That also lets you spend roll your martial arts die and heal yourself.
Yep. Yes.
For a number of hit points equal to the die number you rolled and your monk level.
Right.
Let's see here. Diamond Body is immune to poisons.
That
Sorry,
can occasionally come up.
Yeah. Diamond Soul, which is different, is spell resistance, which is actually decent. It's spell resistance, monk level +10.
Okay, so that will occasionally actually work.
Yeah, you have to get level 13, but that might be their best. It's like Quivering Palm at 15 is fine.
It's probably their best non-flurry of blows, non-stunning fist feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Empty Body at level 19 lets you become ethereal for 1 round per monk level per day.
I think that's also the other innate problem. How much of the stuff that we mentioned isn't just a passive ability that you have to remember exists?
Yeah, there's a bunch of trinkety passive abilities you have to remember exists. That, I mean, at level 11, being immune to poison might matter depending on what you're fighting. Being immune to diseases is cute, but basically every disease has like a 1 day plus onset time. So you have plenty of time to deal with disease if you're actually finding something that has diseases and going to disease use. This really doesn't fucking matter besides saving you some money on finding a removed disease
Also,
spell.
it specifically doesn't make you immune to supernatural diseases.
Or magical diseases, which anything higher level you're going to deal with, like mummy rot is a supernatural disease.
Yep.
There's plenty of diseases, like basic diseases aren't going to be things that you have to deal with, which means you still have to deal with those. A piddly amount of healing. Like, the only one I'd bother to remember is the fact that I have spell resistance level 13.
Yeah. But yeah, beyond that. I'd also have a lot more complaints if we were actually using 2014 Monk, but I didn't even bother with that.
2024 Monk is so much better than 2014 Monk.
Yeah.
2024 Monk is great.
Yeah. Alright. Moving on to Paladin. So this begs the question, when do you feel like a peer of Charlemagne?
I'll never.
Not when I'm playing Ultima 9.
But for the archetypical Paladin, you feel it pretty early.
Yeah, kind of.
Like, you don't do it a lot. Because, Smite is very Paladinish, but you get 1 every 5 levels.
Yeah.
Lay on Hands is very Paladinish. You get that level 2.
Yeah.
So I'd say level 2 or level 3. You start getting your auras.
Yeah.
You get Divine Grace level 2, which is add your charisma to saves, which is one of the best things in Paladin.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'd say probably around level 3, you just feel solid.
They were smart and moved give stat 2 saves in 5th ed to level 6.
Yes. Actually...
Yeah, Thor Protection.
Okay.
Yeah, bonus 2 saving throws equal to charisma.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, because Paladin was very good as a 2-level dip for anyone who just had high charisma.
If anyone using charisma, dip into Paladin for 2 levels.
Yeah.
Just to get an extra stat to all your saves.
Yep. I will also say by complete accident, because they have extra smite as a feat.
That's true. You could grab extra smite to make sure you can really hit with stuff because you add your charisma to the attack button or attack.
Yeah.
Even if you're not getting much out of the extra damage, that's based on your Paladin level. But you could grab extra smite to then use the smites to feel stuff that can spend smites, or alternatively just boost attack rolls.
And boosting attack rolls at low levels, if you were just grabbing like a big fuck off 2-handed sword, just grabbing a great sword is perfectly fine. This is also notable where Pathfinder has a pretty significant upgrade when it just comes to just straight feel, as the Smite Evils are still once per day, but they don't apply to an attack. They apply to that guy until he's fucking dead. Yeah.
Yeah, they made Smite Evil so much better. Rather than being I swing once and get some extra damage, it's fuck that guy in particular.
Yeah.
But important to note, giant spider corpse full of other spiders. Not evil.
Not evil. Yes.
Is undead. Not evil.
But yeah, Paladin does get its feel across pretty quickly, regardless of which of the editions you're playing.
Yeah, even 5th ed gets it across pretty quickly, I feel.
Yeah. 5th edition might be a little bit weaker in that respect, but
it's a little bit slower because the only thing you really get at level 1 is spellcasting and lay on hands, although your spellcasting does give you smite.
Yeah, because there is actual smites in there. You get the free you get the one free smite per day at like 2nd level, but beyond that.
Yeah, you get divine smite as a always prepared spell level 2.
Yeah.
Which you can then also just use your spell slots on in addition to getting the one free one a day. You get a fighting style level 2, which can be one that gives you cleric cantrips if you want.
That's true. I forgot that was actually in there. Yeah, they also get weapon masteries, as I mentioned before. So if they want more martial in there, they have that as an option as well, without having to actually have like a specialized subclass for going one way or the other.
Yeah, they still get a mount.
Yeah.
They just get which is the Fine Seed spell. They just get to cast it once per day for free.
Yeah. Which I do like a bit better, but that's the only class feature that I will like contest with on the mount. Doesn't necessarily feel like that needs to be a baseline Paladin thing per se.
Yeah, I think it's just relic from.
It kind of is, yeah.
The Paladin being the knight in shining armor thing.
Yeah, that's true enough. But yeah, all the same, it's like in 3.5, when 3.5 came out, until there was Cavalier, basically the special mount feature might as well have been ignored most of the time. And also, where we are in the books is in like a weird gap period where the special mount's best use is transportation and or going into Cavalier. At a certain point, there's also with Player's Handbook 2, you actually have the option of not doing mount, which is also technically a thing with Pathfinder First Ed. It's actually called Divine Bond. And you can take something other than the special mount as a class feature.
Yeah, you can bond to a weapon and basically get a couple times per day, like activate your Divine Bond to get bonuses.
Yeah.
A nice thing if you don't want to be the stereotypical like questing Arthurian knight riding around on a horse. Because that is very much the feel of what Paladin is.
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as the old Paladin being that is the your knight the
round table.
Camelot, the round table.
Yeah,
only model.
They dance whenever they're able.
Or at least what most people think of the Knights of the Round Table. Ignore all those other ones. Most people don't consider. You're Lancelot.
Can I not be?
I mean, if you have taste.
Let's see. Okay, now on to one that's as hard as fighter to define for completely different reasons, because what the fuck is a ranger? This one I actually have more trouble defining, even within DnD as a concept, because is it a survival skill monkey? Is it an archer? Is it forest rogue? Is it the only strength-based
this one I feel very strongly that ranger came directly out of Aragorn.
Oh, yeah.
Ranger did come directly out of Aragorn. The problem is Aragorn is he a fighter? Is he a rogue? It's the exact same problem we have here.
Yeah. Aragorn himself doesn't really have much of a defined, a class, actually.
Like, he's used a bow. He's used two weapons. He's used, basically two-handing, a longsword or a great sword.
He used a bow?
I'm pretty sure he's used a bow at some point.
I actually don't know.
Hold on.
I'm also not sure he's used two weapons.
No, he's definitely used two weapons.
He has shot the bow, at the very least have images of shooting the bow, at least from the Lord of the Rings movies, at the very least, at the Battle of Helm's Deep. So he's definitely almost certainly used a bow.
Yeah.
He also actively carries a bow, so I assume he uses it.
I wonder how much of that is backfilling from... Like, I almost consider the movies more canon to Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
at least the original trilogy, than the actual Tolkien works, but still.
That's what most people are going to think of when they think
Yeah.
of Lord of the Rings nowadays, is the movies. And he uses a bow in the movies. So
Yeah.
he has basically used every potential combat style the Ranger has, except an animal companion.
But that still basically makes him a fighter.
Yes, correct. Which is kind of the problem with, like, Ranger is, like,
It's a fighter with skills.
it's a fighter with skills.
Yeah.
It's a nature-focused fighter with skills. Like, a meshing of the fighter and the druid, but erring more on the fighter side.
And this doesn't really get solved in 5th edition either, because I don't think
Any
5th
edition,
edition... Yeah, it doesn't get solved in any edition, because it's basically the same problem. I do like the fact they moved away from favorite enemy, because who has ever fucking liked favorite enemy? It's just a stupid class feature, honestly.
Well, they do still have favorite enemy in 5th ed. It's just Hunter's Mark.
It's Hunter's Mark, which... Okay, I like Hunter's Mark better than the idea of I pick a specific thing to track and hate, and God, I hope the campaign is focused around it. But
Favorite enemy of our Rangers.
Instead, it is, I cast a spell, and now I hurt that guy better. And if that guy dies, I can move it to someone else, provided it still has duration left and I haven't failed the concentration check.
You mean I have Hunter's Mark from World of Warcraft?
Okay, so I understand the concept of what old favorite enemy is. It's the flavor of someone who is used to hunting a particular type of creature.
It's a flavorful ability. It's just a bad mechanical ability.
So the thing is, what it shouldn't or should have been is not a class ability. It should have been a feat.
I am of the opinion that Ranger should not exist. It is not that it should not exist. I won't say that anything should not exist, but there is nothing you can do with Ranger that you can't do with other classes, feats, and powers, even if we're just talking the base book and the base Dungeon Master's Guide.
There's actually one thing you can do, and I kind of hinted at that earlier. If you want to make a strength-based dual wielder, Ranger is basically your only option in 3.5.
Yes, because Ranger gets all the dual wield feats as bonus feats, ignoring the prerequisites. So they get to skip the ever-increasing dexterity requirements for dual wielding.
Yeah, and those are rather high requirements, like 17 and 19, and you basically have
things you actually have to get magic items to meet at a certain point. For the most part.
Almost sounds like that's a flaw with those feats than an advantage of the class.
It's both. That's
an argument for a different day.
But that's yeah, exactly. Mechanically, Ranger tends to end up interesting. Actually, kind of in both editions. 3.5 base book Ranger suffers from being a base book martial class. Honestly, also with spell casting. That let's see, the one interesting spell on their entire spell list is Freedom of Movement, and that's a 4th level spell. What
about that one 3rd level spell?
Which one?
The one that we were mocking the fact that it's a 3rd level spell.
That was in a later book. I'm talking about just in the base book.
Oh, just PHP? Okay.
Yeah. As far as just PHP Ranger spell list, it is composed of, let's see, minor buff spells that you're almost never going to cast, Long Strider's at least an okay movement buff, Summon Nature's Ally, a way too low a level to do anything, some crappy cure spells that are way outdated by the time you get them, and so Freedom of Movement. Freedom of Movement is easily the best thing on their list.
Did 3.5 Ranger get 6 skills per level?
They do get 6 skills per level. The 3.5 Ranger is very much a skill monkey. That is the other thing they have over like Fighter.
So they're a weird amalgamation of the skill side of Rogue, the martial side of Fighter, and the casting like animal side of Druid.
Yeah, their biggest issue is they don't have any uniting theme, or anything that feels like a solid theme that is just them. The most memorable thing about the 3.5 Fighter or about the 3.5 Ranger is the favored enemy ability, but it is almost never what they're actually built around.
No, I mean, it's either you know exactly what the focus of your campaign is, so you build around it because it is going to be very, very strong, or you're just running a typical campaign that isn't necessarily focused on finding a particular enemy type, in which case, hope you guess right.
Yeah, it's pick some broad categories, and like, pick Evil Outsider, and I don't know, other things, And even
like
then, leave evil
undead
outsider.
or
Yeah. Undead, evil
Like-
outsider.
like typical monster types that'll show up a lot, but it has to be like for outsider you have to pick subtype, for humanoid you have to pick subtype.
Yeah. I mean, outsider evil is going to cover the vast
It's going to pick up a
majority of
lot
it.
of stuff.
Yeah. Aberration is a broad category, but it's also very DM taste dependent because not all of them are going to use aberrations. Because it's like, yeah, Beholder is neat. I don't want to fucking run a Beholder.
Like undead is a decent choice unless your DM just doesn't like make you fight undead all the time, in which case it's also a dead choice.
Yeah.
But dead choice.
But it's very much a
Yeah.
guessing game. And
Yeah.
that's
Whereas,
the
like,
biggest issue it
if
has.
you're playing the Red Hand of Doom, where you know your primary enemy is going to be orcs and dragons, then you can pick, okay, I'm going to pick orc at one level, or I'm going to pick dragon at one level, then I'll pick the other one at the other, at like 5th level.
Yeah.
And I'll be good against most things that are going to show up in this campaign. Not being get gang raped by ghosts, but
Oh, that's how that one person got pregnant in the horror book.
that's an encounter that needed to happen.
I didn't think we were doing the Book of Erotic Fantasy, but here we go.
Oh,
Just
God.
for one picture, apparently.
Random pregnant person pointing
Oh.
out design to ghosts.
All I'm saying is that there were a group of adventurers who were really excited until they finally got to the Tomb of Horrors, and somebody clearly enunciated the name. And then were way less jazzed about going in.
Yeah, so I'd say in general for Ranger, how quickly you feel like you are a Ranger very much depends on what you view a Ranger as being.
Yeah, this is one of those like
Like it's a
Rorschach inkblot tests for 30.
yeah, like it's like
Yeah.
5th edition. It's a perfectly viable class. You can run Ranger. There's nothing wrong with it. 3.5, it exists. It's a base book martial, so it's not good.
No. It's not good base book. It gets better as you get into later
It gets
books.
better stuff as you get into later books, but it's still
Yeah.
like, eh.
Yeah, basically. Like I've run Rangers before. They're fine.
Yeah.
But for remember there might be things that replace favorite enemy, there might be things that replace animal companion. I'm not sure. I haven't read enough ahead. I know there absolutely are in Pathfinder First Edition, and those are like the two things you replace pretty much fucking immediately.
You're able to fire your animal companion from your bow.
Exactly.
Well, there's two things I like about Pathfinder. A, Ranger was fine in Pathfinder.
Yeah.
But B, later on they decided, hey, you know what? We can make better Ranger. They did hybrid classes.
Well, yes, they
Yep.
did Hunter, which is almost better Ranger by being named Hunter. Because, like,
Yeah.
hey,
I
wait, we have a
agree.
concept.
They did
I
Hunter.
agree.
Like, you know how Rangers can have animal companions? Why don't we make a version of the class that focuses on animal companions? And then there's Hunter. And then, hey, you know how Ranger is kind of like a roguish with all the skills and everything? How about we just make a better version of the melee Ranger in the form of Slayer?
Yeah. Where it basically leads into one side or the other, basically.
Yeah, like they get rid of the too many hats problem by making it focus on one or the other thing it does, and it just works a lot better than base Ranger.
Yeah. But we'll get that much later in our time, when we actually
Yeah.
probably start going through Pathfinder first at some point. But
Yeah.
that aside, let's move on to Rogue, which I think has the dual answers of both immediately and it takes a while. So as far as like basically the backstabber thing, you immediately feel sneak attack in pretty much every edition of Rogue, and it's just plain good design. Both in
You get a
3.5,
skill points.
yeah, both in 3.5 and in 5th edition gains sneak attack. Pathfinder first as well.
Yeah.
Beyond that, that's kind of where it drops off. You do get a bajillion skill points, but you're no better at any other individual skill than any other class, and there's nothing in the class features in 3.5 that make you better at skills at all.
No, there is in 5th edition. You get
There
expertise.
is in 5th edition. There is in 5th edition. You get expertise, which is nice, and you do get your first expertise at a reasonable level,
Level 1.
at least at level 1. Yeah, so that helps a little bit from level 1. It especially helps shore up abilities that aren't necessarily your primary stat, which for your average rogue is nice, because if you want to be good at things that other than like the dex based stuff, it can feel a little painful otherwise. Reliable talent is something I'm looking forward to getting, and still, but it takes a while. It's like level 7. I contend that one should probably been moved. It was level 9 actually before 2024 and 24. Moving it down to level 7 was kind of a good choice, but I would have even preferred if it got pushed down more, trading off for other features that could be pushed up, honestly. Because I really... It's like the expertise is nice, but it really doesn't feel like it's kicking. It really doesn't feel like it kicks in anywhere near as much until you get to the +3 bonus, where it's effectively adding like you go from having 4+ stat to 6+ stat. So even if your stat is subpar, it feels good, type of thing. But yeah, in general, the 5th edition does a lot better when it comes to like the skill monkey thing. As far as the random tricks are concerned, which is the other thing about it, like being the resourceful rogue type thing. And mind you, there's a lot of other archetypes of rogue, but those are pretty easily covered by 3.5's subclasses, and I've actually pulled up because basically that actually does kick in at for 3.5 when you start getting the special abilities, which is actually the only time where I could say you actually get anything skill based in rogue
at
proper,
level 10.
At level 10. And then like every 4 levels afterward. Jesus, this was even worse than I thought it was. Yeah, every 4 levels afterwards. But yeah, this is also saying that Pathfinder First Edition does better because they have rogue talents, which kick in at level 2 and are just little trinkety things you gain.
And you get one every 2 levels.
And you get one every 2 levels, including once you get to 10 and actually start getting what's effectively the equivalent of the rogue special abilities.
It's very important to note that when we talk about Pathfinder, you see here's the rogue we have up right now, which actually has a lot of stuff, and most of it's like sneak attack.
Yeah.
With the exception of wizard, cleric, and fighter, or wizard, cleric, and sorcerer, because they are still very much defined by just having spells that can do everything. Every class gets something at every level.
Yeah, and even they get basically on levels where they wouldn't get an extra level of spellcasting, they get something. Yeah. No, the classes are much better designed to actually make you feel like you gained a fucking level. It isn't like, here's +1 attack, maybe +1 to your saves.
Great job of doing everything they can to be. Yeah, we're not gonna do the 3.5 thing of making a dozen prestige classes in every book. We're just gonna make the base classes good enough that you want to stay in them.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate.
Something 3.5 very much didn't do.
No. Oh, that's fine, because your DM is going to custom tailor a perfect prestige class just for you.
I am never going to custom tailor a prestige class just for you, just so we're clear.
Normal any DM ever.
Said you would.
Ain't no one got time for that.
I feel like if I asked you to do that, you would design the worst class in existence just for me.
It's all around doing paperwork for Nira.
I don't have to design.
I will gladly make garbage for you.
Also, I don't have to design a bad prestige class for you. Purple Dragon Knight's over there.
Fair.
I want a prestige class for your druid. Okay, it's called 3.5 fighter.
I'll be good.
Just be thankful I didn't give you 3.5 monk.
It's let me pick one of the random elf specific prestige classes.
There you go.
Oh, you got 2
They have
hits.
features. They're all shit.
Yeah.
Oh no, I take the good ones out. That one fluke, we can't have that.
2. There's
That's
2
right. He's got to custom tailor the class for my character to make her as miserable as possible.
You can have these classes that are specific to elf that are garbage, or for some fun on there, I'll throw in the elf human racist.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey, do you want favorite enemy elves and humans?
Like I said, someday we're going to do Shadowrun, and at some point I'm going to do my elf with the elf hater flaw.
Okay, let's see. And moving on to 2 that I shoved together, Sorcerer and Rogue, because our Arcane Caster is obviously a very solid identity, but
Sorcerer
it's more...
and Rogue?
Yes.
That's a druid.
Or sorcerer and wizard.
That's
Sorcerer and
That's
druid,
a
yeah. Sorcerer and wizard.
That's the arcane.
So, Miali is here mostly to tilt Shiv, but that aside.
I will go to my grave saying she looks nothing like a fucking wizard.
I mean, I'm not disputing that part, but she is technically the iconic for 3/5.
I guess
Yeah.
their thinking was that the
I don't have
angled
to like
shoulder
it.
pads are.
Their thinking is she's
Are
an elf,
wizard
and they
coded?
leaned much heavier into elf than they did anything else with her.
It's like the color tones, the armor design of it being like leathery like thing. It just feels very druid to me. Hammond, on the other hand,
Bonded
he's wearing belt for clothes. We can tell he's a little bit off. He's a sorcerer.
So
He's got the charisma to wear it though.
So both of them very solidly feel like arcane casters. That's not really much in dispute there. The wizard thing seems kind of strong enough mechanically with the spellbook and such, but when it comes to just function and how they play, they're really, really close. Even after the sorcerer gains, class abilities as opposed to summon familiar, which they both get.
I actually, even through like Pathfinder and 5th edition, there's not that much different between wizards and sorcerers.
No, there really isn't.
Like, especially not in 3 and in 5th edition.
Yeah, they do have.
Where they don't even have different
spell lists.
casting styles.
Yeah, they don't have different casting styles. They do have different spell lists actually, but it's not different enough.
It's not significantly different.
Yeah,
And the big thing that differentiated them in like 3.5 and Pathfinder was the method of casting. We have known spells and more spell slots for it. Or you have a big book of spells with more preparation, and you spontaneously cast the stuff you know, or you cast the stuff you have prepared. But now all the spell casting works the exact same way in 5th edition. So the differences between the two of them basically just shrunk. So they have different class features between the two of them, but the core is still the same.
Yeah. Now, mind you, I do like 5th edition spellcasting simply because it's just less finicky.
Oh, it's good. It's Pathfinder archetype spellcasting across the entire board, which is great.
Yeah.
Even in, like, and obviously they do the weird, like the thing where they don't do multiple tiers of the same spell. They just let you upcast stuff, and that's perfectly fine. There's no complaints about 5th ed spellcasting at all. It's
5th ed spellcasting fixed like my major complaint about 3.5 spellcasting, which is what was quite literally backwards, where the DCs did not scale with spells, where the DC is scaling with spell slot, but the actual power of the the DC is scaling with level, but the power of the spell scaling with spell slot was the correct way of doing it, not the other way around. Yeah. Where whether or not your spell actually is effective is based on how powerful a caster you are versus how powerful your spell is based on what spell slot you use, and not the reverse. It's it balances the game much, much better because low level spells stay effective while not actually growing in power or stupidly.
Yeah.
And it also makes you not hunt around for like the spells that grow in power but don't have DCs at lower level.
So like, but to be more sorcerer and wizard, they're the same class.
Yeah.
It is literally pick for 3.5. It's pick what type of spellcasting you like.
Yeah.
I often did sorcerer because I just thought like it's simpler.
Spontaneous casting is a lot less of a headache.
I don't have to do the whole nonsense of like, okay, I learned some spells, I put in my spell book, what spell do I want to prepare today? I just always work the ones I chose initially, and that's good enough.
Yeah.
In 3.5, you don't have class features, so it doesn't matter. Pick what spellcasting method you like. For like 5th edition, pick the class features you like, because your spellcasting is basically the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wizard will know more spells.
Wizard will know more spells. I think the wizard has a slightly bigger spell list if you're comparing the two. It's not.
There are a couple
discernibly that
sorcerer
much
specific
difference.
spells. There are a couple wizard specific spells.
Yeah.
It's not different enough to make an actual difference. So it's pick what class features you like better.
Basically, yeah.
But otherwise, they're two flavors of the same class.
Yeah.
And they've always been two flavors of the same class.
Yeah. Ironically, metamagic is the home of sorcerer, and
yes, metamagic is now the home of sorcerer, which is done to the point system, lets you modify your spells, and wizard does stuff.
Wizard does stuff. They have a they have more spells they can sling around. They don't have to memorize any ritual spells. They can just throw them in their book. So their ritual spell casting is basically more their domain.
And as far as when you feel like you're a wizard or a sorcerer, at level 1, when you throw a magic missile at someone.
Yeah. At the very least, you feel like the arcane caster. It's like, which
know exactly what you're doing right off the bat.
Level 1, or conversely, level 5, when you can fireball.
When you can fireball.
Yeah.
If you're doing classic blast mage, level 1, magic missile, level 5, fireball, you're rolling.
Yeah. I'd probably say that as far as 3-5 is concerned, even level 1, it's like, okay, realistically, level 1 you are throwing color spray and shooting things with crossbows. So whether or not that feels like an arcane caster to you depends on how much D&D 3-5 you played.
Yeah. I mean, low-level pure casters are can you survive to mid-level?
Basically, yeah.
Because you're made of paper mache.
Okay,
and if something dangerous gets to you, you're going to die. Then you get to mid-level and high-level, where you are God.
Yeah. Once you get to like
the fighter Barbarian has a purpose, and his job is to get me to level 5.
Yeah.
This is what we call an AD carry in MOBAs.
And then once we're in mid-level, he can do whatever he wants. I don't give a shit anymore.
I'm going to cast 1 spell per fight, and the fight will be over. If I'm casting more than 1 spell, we're in trouble.
Incapacitate everyone, and then you can smack them with a stick.
I will cast this web. I will cast this web, and then everything will come at you one at a time, and you will just whack them as they come.
Just hit it with a stick. It'll be funny. It'll be great. The other thing, as long as we're talking about the wizard and sorcerer, and actually this goes same for druid and cleric. 5th ed made cantrips good.
Yes.
This is a very important thing to mention as long as we're talking about casters. In 3-5, you have 0-level spells that are cantrips. They're shit. It's like, I'm going to cast a Ray of Frost. It does a D3 damage. Why?
Yeah. The only cantrips that were ever worthwhile were Detect Magic.
Prestidigitation?
Prestidigitation. Mage Hand. The utility ones. The utility ones were great.
They can't be used you can throw a why would you ever cast a freaking Ray of Frost to do D3 damage? We could fire a crossbow that does D8.
Yeah.
Yep.
They realized that if you're a caster, you should be casting spells in 5th edition, and they made cantrips good. So when you're not using your leveled spell slots to cast spells, your base damage cantrip for sorcerer and fighter is Firebolt, which does a D10. And also, the damage scales as you level.
Yeah.
That's what I like about them a lot.
So when you hit level 5, it now does 2d10. And when you hit 11, it does 3d10. When you hit 17, it does 4d10. You don't have to, it's to basically make up for the fact that you're never getting extra attacks. That your base attack scales.
Yeah.
Why did it take so long for someone to do this?
And mind you, it's not so much that it overwhelms the marshals, because it doesn't do as much as the martial attack.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But it does enough to be respected.
Yeah. You don't get any flat to it unless you're one of the couple...
well, unless you're Warlock, but Warlock is a different issue.
We'll talk about in a minute, because and there's 1 or 2 subclasses that get add damage to cantrips, or static cantrips.
Yeah.
So there is some option for getting static, Evoker, I think, adds static cantrips.
Yeah.
And one of the cleric ones can add, I think the death cleric can add static cantrips, or if they do with their necromancy cantrips. So you get some option for adding static cantrips, but you're still not going to out damage the, fighter swinging in with a great sword, the battle master spending his die to get extra damage when he throws 3 attacks at level 11.
Yeah. And the other thing they did that also helped balance the thing out is there isn't touch AC anymore, so you are literally you and the fighter attacking. Which was stupid in the first place, but
you're still just using a D20 roll plus your proficiency plus your stat.
Yeah.
And if you're using a focus, you add the bonus of the focus to your DCs and your attack rolls.
Yeah.
So nice.
So you also basically get the stat item that all the marshals used to have for your spells now, because they're basically the way you're supposed to fight.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to try and pretend to be a marshal for a few levels and then just say fuck it.
Yeah, and you don't run into the case of like, well, we may have more fights. Do I spend my spells now and then do nothing for the rest for everything else? Or now it's like, okay, I'll save a couple of spell slots and I'll throw a firebolt, or I'll cast Toll the Dead, or I'll cast a Chill Touch, because all these cantrips work. I could even wade into melee if I really want to. There's a handful of melee cantrips.
Yeah. And I will say,
Cantrips are good now.
yeah, I will say across all the editions, I do also like the there is, it's probably one of the bigger strengths of 3.5 especially, but that's mostly by volume, is there is a giant variety of spells that let you build your arcane casters in ways that are completely off base and wonderful.
It's definitely expanded.
Yeah.
Due to just the number of books in 3.5 to give you so many options for spells.
Like, if you want to just go completely against type and do, like, a martial, sorcerer, or wizard, you absolutely can.
Yep.
But yeah. And on to the last class I have on here, Warlock, because I like comparing apples to oranges. Although that's not completely true, as if your base class feature is Eldritch Blast, then we damn well have you covered if that's what makes you feel like a Warlock. Which kind of does actually for
true.
me, because
Warlock in 3.5 was effectively the, do you just want a cantrip to be your main means of attack?
Yeah.
Here's Eldritch Blast. And that's still what it is in 5th edition.
Yeah.
You can technically do Warlocks that don't do Eldritch Blast.
Yeah,
Bladlocks don't have to do Eldritch Blast.
Bladlocks are perfectly viable. They're might even be more damage than Eldritch Blast, actually. But yeah. But yeah, beyond that, it is very much like, okay, this is actually a spellcaster and is a very, very weird type of pseudo full level caster that, how well it is weird.
5th Ed is the weirdest caster.
Yeah. It's also its power level is completely dependent on how your campaign is being run. Because if you're doing like one combat a day, it is decisively worse than every arcane caster.
But if you are doing multiple combats a day and doing rest in between, it always works. Because the whole thing about if they have far fewer, the most they get is 4 spell slots for their standard spells. And they only go up to level 5. But whenever they cast a spell with one of those slots, they always cast it at level 5, no matter what spell they're casting. And they get those spell slots back on short rest. So they just constantly have spells available to them as long as they're resting between fights.
Yeah.
They do also get some high level spell slots via
they effectively features. Yeah, they effectively get 1 6 through 9 spell slot, which
1 6 7 8 9.
Yeah, which
spell
are
per day basically.
Well, yeah, which are once per long rest, which is not much different than the other casters, because until they get to like 19, that's basically what they get as well.
Yeah, so you're still getting the high level spell slots everyone else is getting basically, with barely any exception. But your base slots basically always have eventually, and you get your 5th level spells at the same level everyone else does. So you still get 5th level spells level 9. You only have 2 spell slots at that point, but then you get a 3rd spell slot and a 4th spell slot at level 16. But you just always have spell slots as long as you're resting. So as Vince said, if you are doing a bunch of fights in a day and resting, it's great because you always have 5th level spells and you're always throwing what you want. If you're just doing one fight a day, you might as well play another caster that has all their spell slots available if you're just going to long rest between every fight.
Yeah.
Yep.
So with the understanding that these are sort of different concepts, the Warlock is like innate spellcasting with some type of dark source. By that we mean demons. But like innate demonic magic type thing with no actual like spell, nothing with a limit whatsoever. It is just use at will. The problem with Eldritch Blast is I don't think I feel too much like all that powerful at level 1 because it's doing like a d6 with no bonus. But once you start to get to level 3, you start to have actual invocations. You don't really have, as far as the ones that actually affect Eldritch Blast, you don't really get anything great until at least lesser. So It's probably around level 6 when you can actually start making your Eldritch Blast more than I hit you for some dice of damage. But it takes a little while for the class to come online, but it's not too awful. Like, level 1 and 2 are kind of miserable, but past that, you start to come into your own as a class. And Warlock is where it gets kind of weird, because I would definitely say they feel casty for the first 2 levels, but until you actually gain a pact, their literal subclass, because Warlock in 5th Ed is actually a combination of 2 classes, which is the 3.5 Warlock and the 3.5 class called Binder, which we'll go into later. With a little bit of other things sprinkled on. The actual, strangely enough, Warlock, this Warlock is based off of the 4th edition Warlock, but 4th edition is so much more of a tangent, and also is not a multi-classing system, so it is not really relevant to
Let's
pull
not
in.
talk about that. It's silly.
It's
its own thing.
But 4th Ed is its own thing, and also very homogenized.
Yeah. Also, if I threw 4th Ed into the mix, we wouldn't be comparing apples to oranges. We'd be comparing apples to oranges to concrete blocks. It's like
it is still a game system, but it's so far removed from 3.5 and 5th that we might as well be talking about different systems.
Yeah.
As a friend of mine once described, it's an MMO in pen and paper form.
Not that far off.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that both of these actually did a pretty good job of putting, at the very least, putting the class feel into the class, more or less. I'd probably say they could have been less cautious about the invocations in 3.5, but this is also a very early 3.5 class, so there's... for the era of design it's probably not that awful, honestly.
It's like, oh my god, something can throw 96 every round. Ooh, broken.
At level 20.
Yeah, I know, that's the problem.
Yeah.
They don't understand how their own numbers go.
No, they don't.
It feels like they don't understand how their own numbers go, but they keep designing things.
But yeah, 5th editions, 5th editions, I'd say around 3 is really when Warlock starts to feel like Warlock, in the sense that at least whatever you're making a pact with comes into play.
Which gives you some bonus spells, and then some effect.
Some effect
like,
is very dependent on what
you start to, but you start getting some of the flavor there. Where like, is the patron for your powers a great old one? Is the patron for your powers some fae? Is the patron for your powers a celestial, some sort of fiend, like classical?
Is your patron for the powers this weird spooky sword thing?
Yes, are you a hexblade? Does the blade talk to you? Like you start to get some of the character flavor at that point with the subclass. But I think like the basic idea of focusing mostly on blasting away with an Eldritch Blast type spell, you get that level 1. You get Agonizing Blast to add stat to damage at level 2.
Yeah. Yeah, because you can't take it as a level 1 invocation.
Yeah, it is a 2+ invocation.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only level 1 invocations you can take are like the packs.
Yeah.
Which is why you only get one at level 1. So basically, level 1, you're going to take either Pact of the Chain, which gives you familiar and access to some special familiars, Pact of the Tome, which gives you some extra spells and some extra cantrips, or Pact of the Blade, which binds a weapon to you, which also lets you use your casting staff for regular attacks.
Yeah.
And then each of these have further abilities you can unlock in them by spending your various invocations as you level up.
Yeah, the invocations themselves are kind of a mirror feature. The invocations in Warlock are both more and less powerful, strangely enough.
Yeah, but you can get things like actually Mage Armor. Mage Armor doesn't have prerequisite either, so you can technically have that instead of it is either Mage Armor or a Pact at level 1.
Yeah,
so you could have just free Mage Armor. You can cast it on yourself whenever you want. Eventually, you get stuff like you get Devil Sights. You can see in dim light and darkness, magical and non-magical. You can just constantly false life yourself for temporary hit points.
Yeah. The invocations very much show inspiration from basically 3.5 Warlock.
Yeah, you can get extra origin feats.
Yeah,
if you want to grab some extra origin feats, which can do various things. All the origin
More
feats are like
skills.
half feats, basically.
Yeah, basically.
More skills. You can get some spell. You can get some spell casting through that. You can get like a
Yeah.
first level spell for other classes and some cantrips. You can get extra hit points because the toughness is one of those. 2 extra hit points per level.
Yeah.
Like if you don't have anything else, like it's a nice thing to drop into a bunch of options if you don't have anything else in the invocations you particularly have at a given level, or you're waiting for like I need to be level 12 to get Devouring Blade to get my actually the other class that gets 3 attacks.
Yes, that's right. They actually do get 3 attacks.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, the blade lock is very much viable.
Yep. And as we talked about, there's a bunch of melee cantrips. So
yeah, there are a bunch of melee cantrips.
And Agonizing Blast that adds your charisma to damage for the cantrip isn't limited to Eldritch Blast. You can use it on any Warlock cantrip.
Yeah, it's better on Eldritch Blast because it adds your charisma damage with each attack, and Eldritch Blast. It's unlike other
a unique cantrip, and then it gets when it get rather than getting extra dice, it gets extra shots that are still D10. But since it gets extra shots, each of those shots also gets your charisma added to damage.
Yeah.
So it scales better than any other cantrip. Basically, it scales flat better than any other cantrip. I think if you'll have enough stats, you make it better than Toll the Dead, because Toll the Dead is the best damaging non Eldritch Blast with stat cantrip, just because it uses D12s.
Yeah, but the second you hit like level 5 and have 2 attacks with Eldritch Blast, I'm pretty.
Yeah. As soon as and you're adding stats. So as you're adding stat
Yeah.
to it, you can like Death Cleric gain to cast two Necromancy cantrips. Gain to double Toll the Dead, because that does D12s against things that have already taken damage. Might be able to compete. At least until you get the third attack.
Yeah.
Although each of those would then go up to 3d12, so but you need multiple targets for that to be viable. There's some weird niche builds that might be able to out cantrip Warlock, but they're very specific.
Yeah.
Whereas Warlock just does it at level 2.
Yeah. Level 2 without having to do weird things, or
yeah,
while still being able to do other class features, really.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, and that's all for that one.
I like it.
I don't remember the back of that book.
As I said last time I did something different, I needed a back cover.
True, you did say that. It's also a very wide back.
When does your character begin to feel like Porky Pig?
Crust feels like Porky Pig all the time. But yeah, that aside, I don't know if we learned anything, but this was at least entertaining. Yeah. Yeah, in general, it varies a lot from class to class and how well they designed it to feel like one. Even when it comes to 5th edition, I still think there's some rooms for improvement, even on the stuff we liked, especially on Ranger, because what the fuck is a Ranger? It's still kind of an open question.
A miserable pile of mush.
Those handful of you that watch the D&D and Hindsight videos on YouTube, which exist, I can't say are no viewers because we do have some now, at least on this series. What do you think when certain classes feel like they're a certain class? And also, as Hunter's mentioned, what do you think a Ranger is supposed to be and doesn't do it? What defines Ranger for you? Is it the elf? I'm going to judge you if it's the elf.
I don't think I'd judge him too harshly for elf on that one, at least.
No, you know what elf I'm talking about.
No.
The dark elf.
Uh-huh.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you said the
Yeah.
elf. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
They're the reason
Right.
people know Rangers because of frickin' Druids.
That's partially the reason the dual wielding part too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It's fine if it's the elf. I'm still going to judge you, though.
Oh, I'm still judging you. It's fine, but we're judging.
I mean, still judge you anyways, regardless.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we're relatively at stopping time, so that's all we have for you this week. Join us on Monday for more Digimon Stories Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memories.
Hacker's Memory.
Yep.
Join us on the Sunday before that for Super Robot Wars 30.
Yes, join us on the Sundays
to
before
press
that.
through more side content now that we've opened up more side content.
Yay, side
Yeah.
content.
Side content indeed. And join us back here on Thursday for when we continue delving into D&D 3.5 books, and we will get into, finally, the Spell Compendium.
Yay!
Hey, this one has a picture that a person doesn't. One of our other co-streamers who doesn't join us in this particular stream, Bograt, really wanted us to make sure we showed the picture off. So,
Yep.
I know exactly what he's talking about. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's pretty good.
it is pretty good. But yeah, until then, everyone, I'm going to ask you, when does it feel like your class has hindsight that is 2020?